So this week's show was recorded in San Diego, and I have to say hats off to you, Pete. You captured and delivered a tremendous show that I happily edited and enjoyed all the way through, but I wasn't there.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I got to say thanks to Lapa Lapa for hosting us.
When I edited the show, you kind of handed it over to me delicately and said, well, it gets a little political.
Yeah, and we typically don't get political. The thing that I tried to capture in the show was that I knew we were getting political, but was trying to let those guys talk and be what they are, but also to let us have these conversations, You can lean left, I can lean right, but it doesn't mean that we're all wrong, idiots, or right.
We need to stop making it all wrong.
That shit, right?
We need to make it okay to have a viewpoint, to express a viewpoint, to love people around you who have a different viewpoint. I had dinner last night with a guy who leaned to the right. When we were done talking, he said, hey, man, that's cool. I respect that. And somebody who was with us at the dinner who was on the other side of the table, she got pretty riled up.
Yeah.
And understandably so. She was just being passionate.
Yeah, passionate.
And at the end, it was time for us to leave, so we were all getting up from the table. But he made it all the way around the table, gave her a big hug, gave her a kiss, and said, I love you. And that's how it should be. We should be able to love each other, express our points of view. So I'm happy that Scott expressed his. Thanks for grabbing that great show, man. It was a tremendous listen for me and opened my eyes to a few things, and we got to take a good long look at stuff like that.
I knew when we captured it was special. We got to be able to have these conversations. We got to be able to listen to smart stuff because the answer is never all left, all right. It's going to be a balance in between. And this is how you get balance, is by listening to good shit, smart people. And there's no doubt you do not have Johnny Walker's experience and his point of view. And if you could even try to understand it, then you might understand where he comes from. And Scott McEwen.
All of the accolades that he gets for convincing, first of all, Chris Kyle to go down the road of writing the book.
Right.
And then sitting down and doing the work with him and co-writing American Sniper. Tremendous piece of work.
This is exactly what we're talking about. We're having this conversation and we're both learning as we're doing it. After we did the show, we all sat around and had a bunch of beers at Lapa Lapa. Again, thanks to those guys for hosting. It was awesome. I was talking to Scott about the book and how it impacted me because he's telling my story. I wasn't the American Sniper, but I've been on the ground. I've had all of those things happen to me. I told him my story of the time where I didn't go to the bar and sit and drink and try to get my head right before I got home, but I had that moment. All of those moments. He's like, that's why I wrote that book. To tell that story, to tell your guys' story so we all could see the cost that service members and the people that support them go through when they come back. So if we put a right spin or a left spin on that story, you've not heard the story that Scott was trying to tell. And you need to understand it's about what it's like to come home and what those feelings are. There's some action in there, absolutely war stuff, but the story is a love story for brothers in arms, a love story for his wife and kids. And what the struggle is to actually get back to those things and reconcile those two loves and how do you balance it? That's the story of American Sniper. So this is why we have these conversations, is to give some new perspective and not be so egocentric and mean towards other people.
This is author Scott McEwen, and you are on the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
We're at Lapa Lapa. And in Lakeside, just outside of San Diego, they're great hosts. We appreciate them. We've got some Coronas. We've got some draft beers. George Whitney's here with me helping to guest. And we're looking at Scott McEwen. Actually, Johnny Walker is also in the building, so we're going to con him into coming over and sitting with us as well. So two best-selling authors, a number one best-selling author. Jim DeFelice has been on our show as well. So we love you guys. We love what you do. I know you're always doing something new, always working on a cause, active on Facebook. What are you working on right now?
I've got a book coming out in November that, end of November, that I did with Congressman Ryan Zinke, former SEAL Team commander,
right?
SEAL Team 6 commander, and an amazing American. And we've been working on his biography now for about a year and a half. No, almost 2 years, actually, because he was elected to Congress from Montana 2 years ago, and he's now up for re-election right now.
Okay.
Ryan is a heck of a guy, a great American, and just a flat-out patriot. I mean, this guy has devoted his life to the defense of this country, and it was a real pleasure working with him on his story, because his story is kind of the continuation, certainly not the sequel to, but a continuation of the same ideas that we expressed in American Sniper, God, Family, and Country. but on a different level. It takes Chris. He was good friends and a mentor to Chris, Marcus Luttrell, many of the other names you've heard out there that have become famous of the SEAL teams. But he was their commanding officer, a lot of them, and also was in XO at Buds. So he was the guy that made the call on who was going to get cut and who wasn't going to get cut and why. And it's an amazing exploration of the mentality of a SEAL and what they want from an officer's perspective. Because a lot of people think that SEALs are just these unbelievable, like knuckle-dragging, athletic specimens that want to shoot everybody.
Right.
Not the way it is. Not the way it is. These guys are smart. They're hired to be special operators for a reason.
Right.
And Ryan is really the guy that wanted to make the choice, or that made the choice, and set the rules for a lot of these choices to be made on who was going to be and who was not going to be part of the SEAL teams. And so I really had a lot of fun doing that book. It's called American Commander, and it's coming out November 29th, and I think your readership and your audience would really enjoy it.
Well, I know that everybody that I talked to that read American Sniper loved it. It resonated with me. Man, when I saw the movie, as well as read the book, there's so many instances. I've got a lot of time in combat zones. I've had RKG-3s thrown at me. I've had bullets whiz by my head. Johnny and I have been in all kinds of situations. By the way, Johnny is now sitting down at the table.
And good to see you, brother.
Yeah.
Good to see you always. I just want to add something about Zenki. I mean, from what I hear from my community, SEALs community, they don't treat him as an officer. He treat him like, no fucking way, brother.
He's one of the guys.
Yeah, these stories are the stories we got to tell. I mean, we've told the Vietnam stories, World War II stories, kind of telling the World War I stories. But there's so much richness in what it takes to go do these things. Yeah, SEALs, strong, dumb guys, take a lot of steroids, kick indoors. Okay, well, you've not defined a SEAL at all in that. I've worked with those guys. I've worked with Special Forces folks, Delta Force. They are incredibly talented. You can't out-self-develop any of these Tier 1 guys. They are absolutely incredible at that stuff. And I love to hear all these stories.
Well, the thing is, too, is like Johnny just said, like, for example, with Ryan, Ryan was a college guy. He was on a football scholarship at University of Oregon. At the exact same time I went to Oregon State. We were rivals.
No kidding.
And,
rivals.
There's some funny anecdotes for his story because his last game at Oregon, before Oregon was the Oregon we know today, the great powerhouse football team they were today. This was before that time, and when Oregon State and Oregon were both terrible teams.
Right.
And they played in a game that I witnessed. I didn't play in it, but Ryan was playing in the game for Oregon. I was watching for the Oregon State.
Right.
That ended in a 0-0 tie and has been referred to ever since as the Toilet Bowl.
The Toilet Bowl.
The Toilet Bowl.
Yes.
And it's a historical fact that this was one of the worst college football games of all time, and there was a riot in the stands, and I was in the stands throwing things, and because the game ended in a 0-0 tie. There was a driving rain/sleet storm going on.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst days in Oregon history to sit and watch a football game, and nobody even scored.
Yeah.
And so the whole crowd was upset.
Yeah.
And Ryan was on the field playing, and Ryan said, "I'll never forget that game." And I said, "Dude, it's so funny that history would have it that we got together to write a book, and we both had that common experience while he was in college and he was playing football." But I mean, he went from playing football in a Division 1A scholarship team, to being a SEAL. And when he became a SEAL, like a lot of the guys were younger than him, even though he was an officer, et cetera. But they found out that they were dealing with a Division 1A collegiate,
it's a different game,
and I'm telling you, like he rose their level of physical, PT that he did with these guys. He would lead it.
Right.
I mean, it's rare that you have your commanding officer
for sure.
Say, okay, now we're going to do PT, and I'm going to run you all on the ground.
Yeah, that kind of athleticism. That makes a difference for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I don't know if you know, Vin Scully just retired from announced for the Dodgers, and at one point he and George Bush, the elder, were on the same baseball field. Neither one of those guys is an elite baseball, but college level for back then for sure. But neither one of them are going in that direction. They both were going in different directions, and they both are among the most successful people in their field ever. So you never know what's going to be in that stadium on that day.
That's it, and it's fun to tell the stories, and it's fun to realize that to tell some stories of a guy that helped to train personally, Chris and Marcus, and a lot of the names that have been now become a part of history.
Right.
Rob O'Neill, the guy that double capped Bin Laden, did the foreword for the book, and Rob's a good friend of Ryan's as well, and it was good having Rob sit down and say, this is the generation that trained us.
Right.
And now we're the generation that are out there being called upon to kill the bin Ladens of the world.
Sure.
And, and it's fun to see the different SEAL generations that Ryan went through with Dick Marcinko to Rob O'Neill is today, especially with the team at Team 6 and all the guys that he knew.
Sure.
It's really a really historical perspective as well.
I have to mention a few names too. Tage, Drago, Tage, all those guys, they have big respect to Ryan Zenke. And the thing is, all the book about SEALs, like when Scott started the Chris Kyle book, if you look at the book in big picture, he didn't wrote about Chris Kyle. Mm-hmm. He wrote about one of the position, Navy SEAL, active that position in extreme way. Mm-hmm. So we go with American Sniper, first book for Scott. Mm-hmm. And after a few books, right now, we go in different perspective. Commander.
Yeah.
And like from my experience with SEALs, there is few officers, no one like them, no one love them.
Right.
No one even think to be close to him. Ryan, no one consider him as an officer.
Right.
He's cool fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a few friends, like, you know them. Drago, Tage, Rob, O'Neill.
All pipe hitters.
Yeah. Those guys, they are warrior. Mm-hmm. They don't fucking lie.
Yeah.
He is good, he's good. If he is full of shit, he's full of shit. So, good job. I have one question for Scott and request. Question when the book is going to release.
It's now
American
done.
Commando.
November 29th.
And you're done with all the bullshit.
Done with the DOD.
Awesome.
We're all done.
Good deal.
All vetted. We made our disagreements. I'll note them in the book where they don't want to talk about certain things that I think are not classified that this president and this administration have talked about. That being said, we agreed and we're putting the book out with their vetting and with their, if you will, blessing.
All right.
Check.
Yeah.
And my request, there is any way you can tell us something from the book?
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting stories from the book is the transition that took place, say, for example, from the old Dick Marcinko days at SEAL Team 6 to Ryan's days that led to the current days. And, from the days of the pirates to the days of the current guys. And that's really what I find is one of the more interesting stories is how that happened, what happened to do that, and what caused the sea change at the teams from the days of the wild pirates to the days now where they're pretty much locked down, and the guys, although there's some wildness that goes on, it's not like it used to be. I mean, you have to keep yourself in order. You have to keep things in a much more reserved stage. Back in the day, these guys rolled, and they rolled hard. And that really it was Admiral Olson, Eric Olson, that kind of tailed that back, coming up to the new admirals that they had today, because back in the day, these guys were definitely tough men, rough men after post Vietnam.
Right.
But it wasn't the same type of acumen that they have today. Where, look, dude, we're on the plane, we're there, we jump out, everything's tied down, everything's together. We lose a helicopter, the helicopter comes in and gets us, whatever else. Now they are a machine, and a machine. They're killing machine now. Back in the day, they killed, but now they are a machine.
It's not just a professional force. It's an elite professional force. Everything is taken care of. Because I will tell you, I've ridden around in vehicles that weren't Tier 1 folks vehicles. I'll get to you in a second, Johnny. And you'll see there's shit not tied down. There's stuff that can be flying around inside the vehicle. There's a level of professionalism, and that's not a knock on the regular ground troops and everything. They have a hard job and they go out and do it. But there's an attention to detail that is different from those guys. So yes, Johnny, sorry.
You remember when we head back from the Hawk with civilian car, BMW?
Yeah.
Imagine if we have a lot of rule of engagement.
Yeah.
Do you think we survive in that day?
Yeah. I don't know. It would have been dicey for sure.
It
was. Yeah.
So same thing now.
Yeah.
They cannot do anything.
Yeah.
Because there is extra weight on shoulders, and how he can. We're not talking about you're managing Walmart or Vans or some places.
Yeah.
You are fighting.
Right.
Your life and your brother's life on risk. So sometime if you think about rule of engagement, you can lose your skills.
Yeah.
So this is fucked up point for our warriors. We cannot push him to the warrior limit if we cannot tie him down.
Yeah.
So-
And so, for those of you who don't know, that's Johnny Walker talking. Johnny Walker also has a New York Times bestseller. It's called Codename Johnny Walker, written by Jim DeFelice and Johnny Walker. And it's a fantastic book. And when we have the story of American Commander, American Sniper, you would be like American Johnny Walker. Johnny was an interpreter, but so much more than that. When Johnny worked with me, we dealt with different kinds of problems, and it's just such a valuable asset. So if you ever want to see the story from a new angle, read Johnny's book for sure. Get American Commander on November 29th when it comes out. I read American Sniper. Scott writes great books. Let's talk about some of your Sniper series books. Tell us about those.
Well, the Sniper Elite series has been really, really fun to do because there's a lot of stories that Johnny and I know, and many other people know that will never meet the let's just say the written word. There's no way they're ever going to get non-classified status. There's no way that people will ever be able to talk about them. But there's still great things that have taken place. And really, in the Sniper Elite series, my latest book, Ghost Sniper, is kind of a change because it goes to Mexico. But the first 3 books, certainly the original book, Sniper Elite One-Way Trip, was about an extract mission coming out of Afghanistan that's based almost exactly on what happened. But let's just say that the extract could not be talked about.
Right.
And so I know this from the guys that did it, and it's been a fun series because I've really fictionalized a lot of fact, and I like to call it faction as opposed to fiction, and so it and it's been well received. I think that it goes over a lot of the the relationships between these guys, what they really do, how they really do drink, the issues that really go on at home with wives, with counterparts, with everything else that sometimes aren't as pretty as you want them to be, but that's the way it is. And so that's what that fiction series really tried to do, is encapsulate a SEAL Team 6 sniper who's a fictional guy, but is really an amalgamation of a whole bunch of guys that I've known.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's American Sniper hit home with me. It's not a glorification of war. It's the cost of war. Exactly. I remember being hands on my hip, looking out at the ocean. I lived in Florida, just on the beach. I should be as happy as can be, and I just have this seething rage. I'm not mad at anybody, but I'm angry, and I'm looking out at the ocean, going, "Why am I angry? Why can't I just be home right now?" And I was on leave, and I'm like, I watched the movie, I read the book, and I'm like, that is the story right there.
Well, I drank at this exact bar with Chris Kyle.
Yeah,
not on this side, not on the restaurant side, on the bar side. But
we're classy here at the Break It Down.
I've had more than my fair share of rounds with Chris here, as well as some other SEAL Team guys.
Yeah.
The opening scene from a book that I wrote called Eyes on Target was from this bar.
Yeah.
That's the opening scene, and what that involved was a guy by the name of Johnny Walker, who was an actual SEAL that was in the original class. Master Chief. Johnny Walker, and the original he's a plank owner of SEAL Team 6, and at SEAL Team 6 he was chosen, handpicked by Dick Marcinko to be a member of the original class, 60 guys that were formed to be SEAL Team 6, and I met him on the other side over here with another SEAL by the name of Don Zub. And I'm telling you, it was one of the more interesting stories, because that evening Zub was rolling in his finest form, and we run into a guy, and the guy was wearing a shirt, and the shirt had on it a raven. And a lot of people who would know from SEAL Team lore of SEAL Team 6, the Raven was a bar that was frequented in Virginia Beach by Johnny Walker. Not this Johnny Walker, but the other Johnny Walker at that bar. And he had the Raven shirt on. And my buddy, who was a team guy too, looked at him and said, "Where'd you get that shirt?" And he said, "Well, I knew the owner, because apparently at one point in time, Marcinko had some interest in that bar." He said, "I knew him well. He's a friend of mine." He said, "Really?" He said, "How did you know him?" He said, "Well, I used to work with him." So it was like one of those, like, tete-a-tete, are you a SEAL or aren't you a SEAL? Are you a fake SEAL kind of thing?
Yeah.
And by about halfway through it, I realized not only is this guy the real deal, he's probably the real deal times 5 of what the guy was that was sitting next to me at the time, and he would admit it as well, that this guy was like one of the original guys at SEAL Team 6, and it was a really interesting evening. Because when they finally found out that they were both the real thing, it was like all the pressure came off. But like Zub was like throwing crap on him like, hey, dude, are you who you say you are? And he's like, dude, if you don't think I'm who I say I am, then throw down, man. You're feeling froggy, jump.
Do it. Oh, man.
Thanks God there is no fight.
Yeah.
Don will be disappeared.
Yeah. That's a thing I don't think our listeners understand quite well. There's a real bona fides structure within all of like the special op community. If you like, I've worked in support of those guys. I've worked in support of, gosh, I think it was SEAL Team 6 before I came in to work with Johnny. I got to Johnny because of SEALs, you know. And the only reason why I got to work with Johnny was they were all leaving to go do a different assignment. All the Tier 1 guys were pulled out of where we were. And the other assets were kind of coming in to do a different job, and they weren't there yet. And so the guy's like, I know you. And I'm like, you know me? Like, how do you know me? And he's like, I know you. And he knew me from something from before. So I got to work with Johnny. But it was that bona fides of, I know you. I've worked with you. You've done good work. And then your name gets out there. And so, you know, it matters. And to have, and people, so in this world, in this community, you don't talk about a lot of the things that you don't. You're not braggadocious. You don't say, I'm the this, I'm the that. And so when two dudes show up and they have like this stage down there, like,
oh yeah,
you know, it's a weird dynamic because they've got to get through the fact that I can't brag, but I have done things. No, really, no shit I've done. I'm not trying to brag, but I have done these things. Like, man, well, and it's like this whole like.
And Johnny Walker at the time, he was over it.
Right.
He was like done with it. There was no allure for him anymore. You know, he'd done the Blackwater thing.
Sure.
He had dealt with some of the blowback after the Blackwater thing, and he was like, you know what? I don't even care if you know what community I'm from.
Right.
I'm just telling you, this is what I did.
This is what I did.
You know, so, but it really good. It was a good evening, actually. It was a fun evening.
It sounds like he's got a big, crazy smile on his face. You have to have a zillion stories from these guys. I mean, you're a storyteller, you know.
Oh, yeah. And that old school, the old school of the SEAL Team 6, dude, I'm telling you, those were rough men.
Yeah.
So I have a question for Scott.
Do it.
If you don't mind. So let's go back to the American Commander. I like this name, by the way. Do you think, as an author of the book, you add something for American people you think is very important to the American people to know?
I hope so, and I hope it's, you know, there's some stuff that I think is very real amongst this group. And for example, one of the chapters that I have in the book is called Threat, No Threat. And threat, no threat is this concept that they teach at the SEALs, and really at the upper level, both at the base level, you know, after going through SQT, when you're first becoming a SEAL, all the way to when you become a member of the top of the top. And the bottom line is, really what you're doing is the ability to identify a threat and pull the trigger within the rules of engagement as quickly as you can. And it's really a gunfight. It's a gunfight at that stage. You kick the door in, you got to identify immediately, is this guy a threat or is he not? Is that woman a threat? Is there a bomb? What can I shoot? What are my rules of engagement, et cetera? And I think it's the same problem that we see now in our own community with the police. I mean, a lot of people are asking these cops to make instantaneous, life-threatening, life and death decisions. And let me tell you something, that ability to make that call between threat and no threat within their rules of engagement are every bit as insane as what we're asking of these guys in the military.
Yeah.
Because the rules of engagement are so screwed up, especially for our military guys that are trying to defend themselves 10,000 miles from here.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know who's what. They don't know if it's a threat or not a threat. And what these guys try and do is teach that mentality of once you identify a threat, is that muscle memory of taking that shot.
Right.
And, you know, and that's a very, very difficult shot to take.
Yeah.
But you know what? They have to have that. And that's the training that these guys go through and the mentality that the guys like Ryan try to teach these guys. And Ryan's one of these guys like, look, you know, in Congress and everywhere else, he's very outspoken. If you are not going to if you're not going to let our guys defend themselves and win decisively, then don't send them.
Yeah, don't send them.
Don't send them. Don't even play around.
Yeah.
If we're not here to take care of a job and do the job without tying both their hands behind their back, like this administration has done, then by God, leave me out and leave my men out, because it's not fair to them.
That training piece you talk about too, there's a couple things within that we probably should add in for some color. One is it a threat, and then eliminate the threat, and then you're right back down to level 2. And you're on to the next. You don't just stay peaked at 11. You come back down, you know, so that you can go and see, oh, there's a baby, and you got to move the baby out. Like, it's a real dynamic environment where you're up super high, engaging lethally, And then right back down, calm again.
And that's the other thing, too, is, we made an analogy in the book, and I think the analogy is going to be interesting for the readers to make in American Commander, and that is between a professional athlete. Let's just say the guys that are now playing in October for the Giants or for the Cubs or whoever. They're asked to make a turn on a fastball.
Yeah.
And they hit 1 out of 3.
Right.
And they hit 300 right now or 330 right now. Let me tell you something. They're making $10 million a year.
So
we're asking these guys to make a turn on a rifle and shoot somebody when they don't have 100th of a second to see that fastball, whether it's a curve or a fastball.
Yeah.
They've got that much time to make a life and death decision that either kills them, kills the other guy, or kills their whole squad.
Yeah.
And you know what? And these are the athletes, these are the men that we've asked to do this job, and I don't think people appreciate how tough that job is.
There's an element, too, also within the training. I'll get to you in a second, John. There's an element also within that training, too, because you've got your limbic responses, your animal brain responses. You've got, fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
And training eliminates a lot of the freeze, but then you also have to decide, is this fighting time or shooting? But, people will sit and look and try to figure out what it is that they're seeing, and in that time, you've lost the initiative, maybe you're dead or whatever. So we're trying to take a natural programmed response that goes as far back as we had a brain and say, deny that, run towards action, and eliminate it.
Right.
That is not an easy skill and dangerous to try to judge someone subsequent to making that thing when they're in that moment. And I guess what I'm getting at is you talked about rules of engagement earlier. It's tough, and I know you talked before we started recording about people that get into situations where they have to make a life and death decision, whether it's a police officer or a service member. What can you tell us about some of the things you've heard about that, where those decisions are looked at in the rearview mirror, and maybe it's not as fair?
Well, I've got a perfect example, and it's a guy by the name of Clint Lawrence. And Clint Lawrence is a story that everybody in this country should know about. Look it up, Clint Lawrence, freeclintlawrence.com. Just look it up right now, because when you're done reading it, you're going to be upset. And I'll tell you why you're going to be upset.
John and Pete.
Hey, everybody, if you like the Break It Down show,
I can dig it.
And of course you do.
of course you do, hit that subscribe button.
John and Pete.
It helps us out.
Say what?
Hey, if you're going to like the show on Facebook or on Twitter, it helps us out if you share the show so people can learn about it. So liking it is great, sharing is even better.
Let's do some spy stuff.
Yeah, just
let's
sneak
get
in
all
there.
our friends' phones and have them subscribe to the Break It Down show. Do it. Subscribe. Listen to the show. If you love the show, tell 5 of your friends. Or if you hate the show, tell
Because
5
Clint
of your
Lawrence
friends.
was a lieutenant in Afghanistan with an Army unit, and he just replaced, it was his 3rd day on the job as the commander, not even commander, the lieutenant in charge of a group at a place where his replacement, the guy he replaced, was shot in the throat by a guy approaching the group on a motorcycle. They had 2 guys on motorcycles approaching a group, his guys on foot patrol. They were told to stop. They didn't stop. They were given another warning shot, didn't stop, and Clint Lawrence gave the green light to engage. His guys engaged and shot both the guys as they were approaching. As we know, recently in Afghanistan, there's been at least 2 incidents of motorcycle guys blowing up squads in similar situations. Clint was prosecuted for murder, is doing 20 years in Leavenworth right now, based upon his order to engage to try and save.
So he didn't actually squeeze a trigger.
He did not squeeze a trigger. He didn't have a gun in his hand.
Right.
He wasn't even on that area. He was given the order over the radio.
And you can't make a blanket statement about this stuff, but from my experience, a lot of combat patrols, the rules of engagement are roughly something like shove, shout, show.
Right.
Something very non-lethal, and then it's shoot, shoot, shoot. Shoot to warn, shoot to disable, shoot to kill. And you can go from there's a guy to shoot to kill in one step if you deem it to be unsafe.
And that's exactly what happened with Clint. And unfortunately, as well, this is what really upset me, is since I've come to know about this, what happened to him, is that not only was he prosecuted by the UCMJ in a court-martial, but at his court-martial, they never mentioned the fact that both of the guys approaching were Taliban and known enemy combatants to the jury that convicted him.
So
and
they're
that's why it's up
following-
on appeal right now. And everybody in this country, I don't care if you're left, right, I don't care where you're at in your politics, should look at that and say, why is this kid and I call him a kid. He's a lieutenant.
Sure, yeah.
You know, whatever. But why is this kid doing 20 years in Leavenworth for defending you and me?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, lieutenant, he's a young guy,
Right.
fresh out of school, maybe a little bit of time,
Right.
before he deploys. This is not someone who's been around for 25 years. They're following a Taliban practice of two dudes riding on a motorcycle. There's a lot of guys that ride motorcycles out there, but if you approach a patrol and you don't yield, and stop, then there's going to be a problem, and you're going to get shot. Innocent people would do that. They would approach vehicles too quickly. I've been in patrols when this happens, and they shoot. You will get shot because there's a threat there. Bombs.
And everybody
hand
knew it.
grenades,
This was a very hot area where it was at and everything else. Everybody, both sides knew that this was a very hot area. This was not just a public street in Kabul.
Right.
We're talking about the middle of Indian country.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've walked around in Indian country, and when people approach you, we have more guns than you do. You have to stop. Just like anybody else here in America. If there was an army patrol walking down through your neighborhood and they said, get on the ground, stop. If you don't do it, you're going to die.
Well, there was a shooting recently in El Cajon that was probably about very similar that caused some issues here a little while ago. And they told the guy, don't, get down, stop, do whatever.
Right.
And he was allegedly had I don't know what the whole circumstance was.
He
pretended he had some type of weapon pulled up in a 3-point stance, and they capped him.
Yeah.
I disagree with you guys about rule of engagement in one condition. Like if we build that rule of engagement when you play PlayStation or Xbox, there is no life threatened, It's amazing how you can do that things, and if you can lose your turn, you can play again and again and again, and you can make it perfect.
Right.
Example for the administration, you guys made perfect decision. But when I deal with savages, they use kids, they use dead body to bomb it.
Yeah.
They use women, they use mosque, they use church, they use everything. They use personal things on the women to hurt you.
Yeah. Dress like a
And
woman.
I have to follow stupid rule of engagement just to prove I'm good soldier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my life. And second things, don't send forces overseas with a lot of rules. Send them to Hawaii for vacation with million rules. You want them to fight? Let them fight. Free fight. You're not fight another organized army.
Right.
And there is human being right. You fight savages. I'm going to tell you one of the savage story. So in my city, Mosul, Qaeda before ISS, they killed Iraqi cops. They cut his stomach and they built the IDs. They called the police station the cops belong to. And they told them, we find your friend body on the street. You guys want to pick up the body?
Yeah.
And it's my friend. I have to do that. They went there and they
blew it up.
they kill him.
Well, that's and what you're referring to in my analogy that I had for the world's best athletes, which I consider the SEAL team to be, is when you have a fastball and a guy that can hit a fastball, every now and then they throw a curveball. And that curveball is not one you see coming, but when that curveball comes, it's every bit as devastating as any other pitch that's thrown at you. And here in combat, they've got women, children, guys getting IDs planted in them. So that curveball, you got to be ready to engage that as well.
Yeah.
And, in all of this, for guys that are arguably making less money than what these people want for a McDonald's worker to make at $15 an hour. I mean, so this whole thing, you're asking these guys to serve this country. For me, it's not fair. And one of my big things that I made very clear, like, for example, an American commander, is we as a country are not treating the guys that are doing these jobs, and women, with the respect or paying them what they deserve.
Scott, you and Johnny both,
Or veterans.
Yeah, veterans in general. You guys both know a ton of SEALs. How many of them have no divorces? Like, they all have at least one divorce, right? It's the common thing.
No,
We call it personal issues.
I would say the divorce rate is way in the 90%.
Yeah. And then how many of them come back with what anybody else?
Except if you have Asian wife.
Oh, then it's okay. Wait, what kind of Asian? There's all kinds of Asians. There's Russian Asians. There's Laotian Asians. And the other thing is most of the people I know have what would, for a civilian, be a significant injury of some kind. Maybe not like a fused ankle, but maybe there's a fused ankle in their future. Do you know any SEAL that comes back after several deployments that doesn't have some kind of significant physical malady that they work in spite of?
I don't know even a single one. Particularly, I think all of them have ear and percussion injuries.
Sure.
That I don't think anybody really understands yet. I
Yeah.
mean, like the definition of a closed head brain injury, I'm telling you, man, I mean, these guys, after you've set off so many charges to open things up that these guys have, and they've all done it,
Yeah.
you know, it rattles around and,
Yeah.
and, you know, and destroys their ears. So even the guys that wear ear protection,
Sure.
it doesn't matter when you've set off that much C4 in a closed environment and you're putting that much pressure, you know, overpressure through your mouth and your nose and your ears. It's like, you know, all of them have got something that I believe really qualifies them for some type of medical
I've got
qualification.
multi-tone tinnitus.
Sure.
It's never going to go away. And
Sure.
how many rounds, and you know, you shoot, how many rounds can you put through a Barrett before you've harmed your body irreparably? Not many.
I'm not even talking about the percussion off of gunfire.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
like, you know, that's another part of it too. But just the charges that are set off,
Yeah.
and the amount of air that goes through your nose, mouth, and ears at that point in time, people don't understand when you overpressure that much what it does. It really blows your eardrums out. I mean, it does at some level.
And a lot of these things that we're just starting to really become aware of, concussions and those kind of brain injuries, but even having like something like a Spectre or Spooky overhead, throwing out just massive amounts. So these are planes full of a lot of ammunition and bombs.
Sure.
And when they go out, and I've been on missions when it's up there and it's just laying waste to neighborhoods, you feel it through your entire body. And I'm a long way away. You know, if you're closer in support of that mission, there's no way you're going through that and not getting some kind of damage to your
Well, we
body.
could spend a whole show on the VA.
Yeah.
And my opinion of how these guys deserve better medical care.
Sure.
But you know, I mean, I know guys like Elliot Miller, who's a friend of mine, a team guy that you know, we took him up to the set on American Sniper, and you don't want to see somebody that's a real profile in courage that has done a lot. You know, he lost a leg and was unable to speak because of an injury he incurred with Luttrell in his deployment in I want to say Ramadi, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, all these guys have got injuries, and it's inevitable.
Yeah,
and I'm
it
not even
is.
talking about external limbs blown off or whatever else. I'm talking about it happens.
Right.
It's just part of their job.
Yeah. My bursa sacks are the size of footballs. You know?
Well, that's it. I mean, you know, and then they talk about football concussion injuries in the NFL.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I'll talk to you about concussion injuries.
Yeah.
Every one of those guys takes harder hits every day when they're in a deployment or in a firefight than any of these guys even understood.
Yeah, it's an incredible toll, and we ask a very high price. We had Duke Harbin on the show with Johnny before, and Duke said the pace is unsustainable for what we ask of these folks. And I appreciate both you guys writing and coming on the show and talking about it so we can learn more about what these costs are, because it's real easy to think a certain way about all this stuff, but the reality is really it's quite different. Johnny, you've been on a zillion patrols yourself. What are some of the things that you've seen that stand out that you're like, people just don't understand this about being on a combat patrol? Like, what are some things that just don't make any sense? The other day, I'll tell you guys both the story. The other day I was shopping, and the ass end of my shorts blew out. And I'm like, this is something that would crush a civilian's day. They'd be like, my ass is hanging out. And I had underwear on. But I'm in a grocery store and shopping, and my shorts blew apart for no damn reason, right? Combat guy, you're like, okay, I'm going to finish shopping. I got things to do. Yeah, my ass is hanging out. I'll get some shorts in a little while. You know,
That's right.
It's a different thing. So, what are some of the things you've seen on patrol that just don't make any sense here in the greater San Diego?
I don't know. I mean, for me, with the guys, sometimes we have ambush.
Mm-hmm.
We almost losing our life, and we still have that link between us. We can make it together, or we can die together.
Right.
And no matter what. This is one. Second things, from my experience with SEALs, they just try to do the right things,
Right.
you know? Yes, in tough way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's going to lose his life,
Right.
but he want to do it. He want to make some change to other people. So, Chris Kyle, Scott, he know. I never talk about him, and I never mention him. Because I don't want people feel I get credit behind it, because this is not my relationship with Chris, as Scott know. Sometimes they call him racist. Our people.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about people living in the moon.
Right.
No, people live in the United States.
Right.
They call him racist. Why? Because, he killed Muslim.
Right.
All right? But there is Muslim people too. Christ, he protect them by kill those savages.
Yes.
How about those savages? Christ, he stopped killing them, and they came to United States and they start killing you.
Right.
And when you defend yourself, are you going to be racist too?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Second things, I have my weapon, and I'm Muslim behind his back.
Right.
Why he trust me? He's racist.
Yeah.
Make no sense.
Right.
He shared me his food.
Yeah.
So I think our people in the United States, they go with media more than they go with facts.
Right.
More than they go with real story from our warriors.
Yeah.
Like Chris Kyle, Drago, Tage, Zinke, and thousands of SEALs and thousands of special forces, Rangers. They listen kind of compliment. They don't listen to understand and believe.
Yeah.
This is the problem. So I hope American people, they go less to listen to the media and they listen to our people. Because every family, if they don't have soldier, whatever, Navy, Marines, he's a friend or anyone, and he deployed overseas. Just take from your amazing time 5 minutes and listen to him. And it's going to make change in your life.
You know what's kind of funny is Johnny occupies a very interesting role amongst the SEAL teams.
Yes, he does.
Because there's like one of the things we go over in the book with Zinke is, there's a lot of comparison. There's a lot of like ego amongst the SEAL guys because these are all Type A personalities. These guys are all great athletes.
There's a lot of dick measuring.
There's a lot of whip it out and compare it. And like the East Coast and the West Coast, and there's a lot of rivalry that goes on and stuff like that.
I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, exactly. And everything else. And like with
Johnny loves all
Johnny's
dicks.
like an ambassador for like, I saw that movie Straight Outta Compton recently, which is really a brilliant movie.
Right.
And because you got this whole East Coast rapper versus West Coast rapper rivalry, well, Johnny kind of can stand between all of them and like get along with Team 2, Team 3, Team 8, Team 6. Didn't really matter because he worked with all of them and they all trusted him.
Right.
And so like he gets along with all these guys, but still amongst themselves, they all got a little bravado. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
It is funny.
I think our key for trust is Johnny Walker, not me, the looker.
Yeah, Johnny does occupy an unusual space, and also his perspective in general. I mean, amongst the SEAL community and his, he was on the Jay Moore show. I helped get him on over there, and we talked about how Johnny's sort of a de facto SEAL, like he has the trust and the love of the community. And
when he called me traitor.
Jay loves Johnny. We all love Johnny, but Johnny's perspective is as someone completely from the outside, someone who's like, yeah, George Bush came here and liberated my people in Iraq, and we have to get these monsters, these animals, who literally would do things that you could only write in a movie to people. I mean, I've heard a zillion stories firsthand from people who just instantly start crying when they tell you these terrible tales of what's going on. So Johnny sees these things. He sees SEALs come. He sees the Army come. He sees all kinds of different people come to help Iraq. And then folks here in the States think other things, like that Iraqis hate Americans. And by and large, my experience is they didn't hate us. They actually appreciated us, expected more from us. But I don't know. Johnny, talk a little bit about how Iraqis perceive, from your perception as an Iraqi.
You mean now?
Yeah, now.
In 2003?
Well, because 2003 is different. I'm talking now. Now that we've left and created a shitstorm.
I love to correct information, like 2003 when George Bush, right?
Right, yeah.
Now is Obama, right? Okay, so they hate us.
And why?
Because there is big famous saying in American tradition life, no one left behind.
Right.
Yes, no one left behind. We left country behind.
Right. Twice. Yeah.
Why? Because our president, Obama, he want to make change.
Yeah.
And he want to pull the troops from Iraq. That's cool.
Yeah.
But instead of you pull him in 2 months, let him stay another 6 years.
Yeah.
And make this country perfect example to another countries to follow them. But what we did, we pulled the troops, we let Iran take cover, and Daesh became monster. And now he sent special forces.
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah.
He never learned his lesson. And, you know, if you look at that historically, because I'm a big fan of history, and one of the reasons I wanted to write American Sniper with Chris was because, like you said, we had the World War II generation,
Right.
we had the Vietnam generation, and the man that defended this country and women that worked for this country. And you look at it historically of what happened here versus the Marshall Plan after World War II. We still have bases in Germany.
Yeah.
We stabilized that entire region. If we'd have pulled out immediately out of Germany, you don't think the Nazis wouldn't have taken back control? You're insane.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Imperial Japan. We
Right.
still have bases in Imperial Japan. We have become allies with them. They are now a very prosperous country. Why couldn't we have used our historical knowledge to move ourselves in the same direction for the country of Iraq and had a stable base in the middle of what is one of the most tumultuous parts of the world? It kept things, at least, you don't have to be in combat.
Yeah.
You could have just put up one base in the middle of that thing and defended that base, but had the ability to move out and take care of problems like ISIS, take care of problems like these guys trying to take the country over, whatever else, like Iran trying to take the country over now, whatever else. But you have a base there that's a very strong citadel, just like we do at Bremerhaven, just like we do in out in the bases we have in
Seoul.
Tokyo, in Seoul, whatever.
Yeah, right.
I'm telling you, man, it made no sense, and they try and rewrite history.
Yeah.
History doesn't get rewritten.
And I was in Iraq towards the end of all that as we pulled combat troops out, even though combat troops were sitting in the chow hall with me when they pulled them out. But the deaths in Iraq are all tragic in and of themselves, but primarily towards the end, you were going to die in a car accident or a suicide.
Right.
That was what killed people. It wasn't this pitched battle all the time.
Sure.
There was actual work being done, maybe at a shitty level, and we needed 50 years like you would in any place that's fucked up. But instead, we pulled out. We did a half-assed job of putting an agreement together because the Iraqis, my belief is, from what I've talked to people and learned, they wanted us there, and the government wanted us there. We just couldn't figure out a way to stay. And now then you have this political power struggle between Sunni and Shia, and it's very little about religion. It's about politics and who's got power and who's involved.
So let's go back to 2003 when George Bush came to my country. Did he make mistake? Yeah, he make a lot of mistake. But the big goal is liberate the people.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is from my understanding. If I'm going to replace someone, I have to continue his plan, especially if there is life risk. So Obama, when he came, all what he want to do, he just want to make George Bush look stupid. And he just want to pull the troops to prove to the people he failed. This is not American tradition way.
Yeah.
You have, it's not the factory how you make it, it's how you keep it.
Well.
And we lost.
Yeah.
No, historically, it's going to be known to be. I mean, one of the conclusions we bring an American commander that Zinke thinks is that not only did it destroy Iraq because of the vacuum that was left there and the ability to allow these groups to move in, such as Daesh, ISIS, but there's others. Iran, whatever. But really, it's going to be the downfall of Europe as well, because you've created a refugee situation where they have now basically forced, and these liberal Germany has forced the rest of Europe to basically take on a huge terrorist influx. And these people are now bombing. They're now causing their own problems. But Europe is now going to be a situation like we had going on in Iraq prior to the war, or even during the war. As you watch, they're going to have the same situation there, and possibly it's going to be worse because there's a lot more concentration. And I'm telling you, man, the consequences of this liberal thought process that Obama and the rest of the Western liberal, like European groups, is going to haunt us for the next 50 years.
So you guys know we're sitting in San Diego right now.
I love it here.
I know you love it. I know you love my city.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And we're sitting here and we have an awesome time. Think about different. How about someone, he live in Mosul, he believe about the American dreams, he live about United States, liberate all the people, support all the weak people, and he is now underneath Daesh.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah.
This is our message.
Right.
We send it to the people. This is what Obama goal.
Yeah.
This is a question. I mean, and this is why I'll go with. I know I'm gonna change the subject, but I have a point. This is why I'm going to Trump.
Okay.
I'm supporting Trump. no matter what, because I'm done with this bullshit.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
a lot of faith in this country, and we start losing it.
Well, I'll second that. Ty Woods was a friend of mine. I used to drink with him. Chris Kyle introduced me to him. Ty Woods is dead because of Hillary Clinton and what she did. She is disqualified from the office of president, period. There is no choice here. She's flat-ass disqualified. That's my point on that subject.
And those are heavy subjects. And you guys definitely have first-person interaction that allows you to say that. And I respect everybody's opinion to vote for whoever they want, because that's what we do here. And I definitely don't mind you guys using my platform to say that, because I had no first-hand contact. People are like, it did not go down the way it should have gone down in Benghazi. Yeah. You know, I frankly disagree with the Obama administration and their inability to secure a SOFA. You know, they wanted the benefit of saying we pulled people out of Iraq, and then when it blew up, they wanted to put it back on President Bush. Like, just be stand
What's
up.
What's the SOFA right now? I wonder have you seen the status of forces agreement for 650 troops in there right now?
I'll tell you something else too. I literally know someone who was in the room with Maliki when they were when Joe came over to try to negotiate the SOFA, and he's like, "You sent number 2? I'm number 1. I talked to number 1. Fuck you." And he didn't say it, "Fuck you," but he said, "Fuck you." You know, like, we're not going to do anything until you guys get serious.
Yeah.
So this could have been potentially solved with boss talking to boss. And why I'm critical of President Obama is, we're going to stick our hand out. We're going to be better partners of the world. Why would you insult the guy from Iraq? And then at the end of your administration, give multi-billions of dollars to Iran, the arch enemy of Iraq, and say, here.
It's not enemy of Iraq. Iran bombed the American embassy in Lebanon and killed 1,000 Marines.
Well, on top of them being our enemy as well. Yes, but what does that say to the Iraqi citizens when we bring billions and billions and billions of dollars to the Iranians?
But there are friends, yet they're sending 2 warships right now to respond to ships that have been shooting on our ships off the coast right now. They're sending 2 warships to engage us, right now. I mean, come on.
I got to mention that we've got a crowd listening to us. You guys are being compelling. Go ahead, Johnny.
You know what? I don't know. I mean, you guys, you have better vocabulary than me with all the American politic things. But for me, I think for all the American people, they need to forgive themselves.
Right.
And they have to think about what the best benefit for the United States. It's time for United States. It's not time like 10 years ago when you vote for whatever president is your personal choice.
Sure.
Right now is not personal choice. Right now is United States choice. I'm not saying Trump, I'm not saying Clinton, whatever.
Yeah.
But you have to think about where I'm taking the United States with my voice.
Yeah.
Since the first day, Obama run this country until now. What do we have?
Yeah.
And why I'm gonna follow or I'm gonna support someone underneath that president.
Right.
I already get all the bullshit from him. My country is weak now in a lot of levels.
Right.
We destroyed another countries because greeting President Obama, he just want to prove he's right and George Bush is wrong. So
well, and being president is exceptionally hard, and I'm critical of all those folks. The folks are all up for options. We're critical of those folks. And I will say that you, as a pending legitimate American citizen, not quite there, but soon to be, and I'm glad to be there when you get sworn in.
I don't think so after this interview.
No, you're going to be all right.
You're going to be there.
You're going to be fine. I think you are one of the greatest Americans I've ever met. You know, one of the things, and Scott, I know you'll agree with this. We love the story of the person, the family, the woman, whoever it is that says, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to America, and I'm going to realize this opportunity. And they show up with a dead cat jacket and, a baby doll, and they're like, and then I got to work, and now I own my own company. I have my own life. I have freedom that I don't have. That's the great American story. That's your story. I mean, your story is a movie waiting to happen, and here you are now living life in San Diego. You and I have talked and had that conversation where you're like, I need a gun because shit has to get squared away. And this is obviously in Iraq, not here. But you've been that close to death. You've been hunted by people. And now here you are in San Diego living peacefully. And that makes my heart happy because I know what you've been through. I know the stories that you tell, Scott, about these guys that need their stories told, because it is important. So I definitely thank you guys for that. And the politics aside, because that stuff's going to take care of itself. You know, I love you guys. I love what you do. Please keep doing that. What are you working on now, Johnny? Any news for us at all that's coming up in your world?
So right now I'm having some kind of project
Okay.
to help my own people. Like mostly it's about to liberate
Okay.
by Iraqi army, of course, and help of American forces. And I'm working together. Some close, some staff. I send it back to Iraq, and hopefully Obama he start playing the games
Right.
and make most liberation winner card in his hand and handle it to Clinton. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know what, and you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I got a movie that's in process in
Right.
L.A. right now on Sniper Elite, and then I got American Commander coming out, and
November 29th.
November 29th, and Commander is going to be, I think, the full circle of what we started earlier with Chris Kyle's story, and from an officer level, what this country is really about, to the guys that try and train those guys
I like that.
are as good as
Scott.
they are.
It looks like you have mission, sniper,
Yeah.
Saul, commander, and we will see the next step.
Yeah, well,
what it's gonna be.
Someday Johnny and I are going to get back together and collaborate on a project, and I'm telling you, we haven't really talked about it yet
Yeah.
publicly, but there's another project that Johnny's going to be called upon to do here pretty soon
Yeah.
that I think is going to revolutionize some things.
Well, Scott, you know stories. You gather them all the time. You've got a number of books out. You have a number
he's
one
magnetic
bestseller.
of the story. This is the things.
Yeah.
Like all the story came to him.
Yeah, he's a magnet of stories,
Yeah.
and we need storytellers. I mean, just like the Spartans did, we need storytellers to tell these stories, and I love it. So again, the book comes out on November 29th. It's called
does.
American Commander.
Can you ask him if we have free signed books from
Okay,
American
let's ask him.
Commander?
Can we have free signed
You
books?
guys can.
All right.
Yes.
You guys
Thank
can. You two can, for sure.
And then Johnny's book is called Codename Johnny Walker, written by him and Jim DeFelice.
Let's focus on his book again.
No, I'm just. You guys are both here. I'm going to plug both of your guys' books. But yeah, I mean, Scott's book is. And you, Scott, you've got your Sniper Elite series.
Yep. That's
And-
out. Latest one, Ghost Sniper.
Yeah. So let's support these guys. Obviously doing
See,
great
I
things.
asked him a question.
Yeah.
About can you tell us something from the book?
Yeah.
And he's
Are you trying to take my job?
He's smart. He's loyal.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's American sniper writer. He avoid the answer. So I'm keep answering you.
He's kind of a failed.
Remember
lawyer,
something. This book is on a SEAL team commander that
See?
was one time jumped by one of his men that was an enlisted guy, and twice said to him look, in front of his men, this or that. And Zinke looked at the guy who was 6'5", and 250, and Zinke's a little bit smaller than that, but not that much smaller. And looked at him, and said, "If you're feeling froggy,
Yeah.
jump."
Let's do it.
Took him down, choked him out, and then looked at him, let him up, and said, this is that. I'm going to be reported. He said, "You're not going to be reported. You're going to have respect."
Yeah.
And that's the SEAL team way right there.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the Break It Down show. I appreciate it. Johnny Walker, Scott McEwen, thank you so much. Man, I love San Diego.
Break it down.